Hi folks, welcome to the TAG Cyber Roundtable. I'm joined today by members of SertintyONE, cybersecurity and tech company located in Nashville, Tennessee. To my right is Greg Taylor. To his right is Dan Fisher. Across is Amir and Greg Smith to my left. So welcome, guys.
Thank you. Appreciate you having us.
You bet, and we're going to start with our CEO. Tell us about the company. You guys have a very cool heritage and seem like a very tight-knit group.
It is a very tight-knit group, and we've got a great culture. I had the privilege of meeting these guys. I was trying to recover a failed .com technology company. And Greg actually joined me on that basis because it was some pretty cool technology. But we discovered pretty quick after spending some time with Greg that he had some inventions and things that he had done in his life, and kind of came in my office one day and said, we can work really hard to stay ahead of the hackers and the power of the computers that are coming out today. With this old legacy technology.
When was this, by the way?
This was in 2010. 2009.
Oh, right at the end.
At the end of 9.
Right, I joined at the end of 2009. It was right in that time
So
period.
you figured the financial services collapse was a good time to get into and start a company, right?
So he came in my office one day and he said, Greg, we can just really work hard to stay ahead of computing power and the hackers, or I've got something you might want to take a look at. And I said, all right, yeah, I do. And it didn't take me long to figure out it all when he showed me some really cool technology that he had invented that was the direction of the future.
Greg, what did you show him, Greg? What were some of the things you were working on?
I mean, we were focused on trying to relight the legacy technology that he was describing, but clearly we needed to focus on the problems at hand. And at that point, it was really just the beginning of all these hacks and breaches of data breaches that were occurring.
Millions of records being ripped off.
Yeah, it was just obvious that we should focus on something like this. So we clearly identified data at rest, data in flight as a target. Coincidentally, I had developed an expert system and a virtual pseudocode-based engine way back in 1990, and it was kind of a hobby.
Wow.
So, just kind of kept it around. Every time I'd buy a new computer, I'd port and get it running again, and then it would sit on the shelf, and I'd just tinker with it along the way.
Using virtualization in the early 90s.
Yeah.
That's early.
Yeah. I mean, it was before Java.
Yeah.
So, but at that time it was still just fun stuff, and I didn't really have an opportunity to commercialize or even have that.
Right.
It wasn't even on my scope. I was focused on other things. But at that time, in 2010, we're trying to figure out a way. How can we give data a sense of awareness, self-awareness? How do we allow data to participate in its own protection? And you look at it from the outside and think, oh, that's impossible. It's a hard problem to solve. But it just clicked one day. It's like, what if I embed my virtualization technology, my P-code machine and that language into the data in such a way that it can take charge and take ownership of the data per se. And we slowly stepped into this idea, and within a month or two we had a prototype running where the engine was running and was in charge of the actual data and its protection. So that was really the beginning, and that was mid 2010 or so, and it's kind of evolved through a number of significant steps.
Yeah. So the idea is that the security gets embedded instead of building security around things. Build it right in. That seems like a trend. Like I know Dan, you and I have talked in the past. Seems like a lot more of cybersecurity is moving away from building these big perimeter boundaries around things. Most businesses have figured out that doesn't work too well anymore. Protect the data.
Yeah, we had a couple of design themes, but one of the foundational theme was that the today's technology, you have a sender of technology and you've got a receiver, of data, and you got a receiver of data. And most of our systems today are designed around monitoring and watching and evaluating the behavior of that sender and receiver. And the data is just an inert object here in between. And what he's been able to do is give that data file now an ability to be an identity just like the sender and the receiver.
Right.
So now you can create a relationship between the three that is what we now monitor. We establish the legitimacy of this relationship because the data itself now participates in that relationship. And so now we monitor and watch how that relationship changes as opposed to just watching the sender and just watching a receiver.
Yeah.
Now that you have an ability to have a data file participate in its own processes, you have now considerably more control over the security aspects of the data.
I think that makes sense. I know, Amir, you joined the company more recently. I'm guessing some of these technical characteristics must have really attracted you to the company. A couple of things that you saw that were more interesting than others that attracted you to the company?
Well, it's been almost a year ago, and I previously worked for a company that represented 300 high-tech companies, mostly in cyber, mostly from Israel, which is today effectively the epicenter for cybersecurity. And I was going through kind of the motion of getting a better understanding, obviously, of what the technology does. I came to a family office just to assess, and I had a strategic insight. Two things kind of popped up. Since it's a proprietary language, that nobody has a secret sauce, there's no back doors. This is something that could be a global standard. And secondly, it was also in Nashville, because it was under the radar. So those two things together gave me an understanding that this could be a very big thing.
It's under the radar unless you're a country music fan, then it's not under the radar, right?
I'm not a country music fan, but I have become
There's not a
so.
big
I have
country
become so.
music
I've
kind
become
of thing
so.
going on in Israel. Maybe there is. There are probably big fans there. So now, once you sort of embed the protections into the data, maybe it's a good question for you. How do you manage that? Like, it seems like if you drop control and embed it into data, then the first thing that comes to mind for me is, I got data all over the place. How am I keeping track? If I want to change a policy, if I decide everybody of the following, with the following legacy should have the following policy applied, do I have to hit a million different things, or how do you do that? How do you manage that?
Well, this engine that this virtualization that we insert in here is basically a dynamic entity. And the way I designed the whole container mechanism is that it actually does have a mini file system in there. So that allows me to create autonomous objects, insert them into this mix without disturbing adjacent objects. Now, and the underlying design is very similar to a database management system in that I have the data is not just going in there into a big blob, it's actually being randomly distributed and mixed with other elements in there, but yet I'm able to maintain a chain that would allow the data to be reconstituted in its original form. So data is considered one of these little sub-entities. Governance policies and things like that you described are considered a standalone entity. File system, and we're not limited to single data items. You can insert an entire folder of objects into a single smart data, smart file object, and the engine, this KCL P-code engine that we've described, will keep track of it and manage it. We use industry standard encryption. However, we boost it and we make it stronger. We remove all breadcrumbs. The keys are managed by the data itself.
You boost the algorithm itself?
We do. We take the best industry standard algorithm, and that can actually be changed by the owner of or by a participant of the technology if they
Right,
wish.
right.
But we start with an industry standard encryption algorithm.
AES or something?
Yep, AES 256, the strongest that I can get to that's considered, commercially available.
Right.
And then I add additional mangling and distribution of data. So I take the data and I just scatter it all over the place. Chaos is our focus.
As long as you can de-chaos,
I
it
can
works.
de-chaos, but
Did we just make up a word?
I'm sorry.
I think
Yeah,
we made up a word.
Yeah.
De-chaos.
That's right.
Write that down.
Right. New industry term.
Don't let the marketing people hear, right?
But it all seems very confusing when you look at it from the outside, but it's very well organized and absolutely reversible based on authentication. So the engine is in control 100% of where this data is, who can get to it, when, where, and that policy module, part of this engine, can be changed by the owner or by an authorized agent.
Yeah, that's cool.
So it's immutable to
Tampa.
unauthorized entities and inaccessible. It's invisible, but to the owner, you can go out there and actually amend it, add new things, add more policy, add strength, add new participants or collaborators.
Yeah.
Very flexible, but very strong.
Very interesting. So let me go to the boss here. Greg, I've seen you discuss with great enthusiasm the potential for your technology. Do you see this as something that is best delivered through partnership with, say, service providers or big companies? Do you think it's sort of a natural, or do you see yourself more going direct to customer with product, or maybe all of the above? What's kind of the plan for bringing this technology?
That's a really great question, Ed. Our initial business model is we're aggressively right now looking for the right strategic alliance partners. And an ideal strategic alliance partner for us would be an entity that had their own system engineers, developers, they build their own products, so to speak. Because currently we have an SDK kit that if you are a company of that sort, you can take that SDK and you can modify your existing programs where you own your source code and integrate our technology into existing applications and turn them into smart data applications. But the other side of your question is, yes, we are going to build some specific products that we feel can target specific areas of markets that we think there's a great need for. I'll give you an example of that. Lawyers, as an example. People who are involved in large M&A activities, where you're dealing with very complex contracts. And one of the very, very cool things that this technology that Greg has created allows you to do, say the 5 of us are in a complex contract and you own the contract. This is your opportunity, it's your company, you own the contract, you can have access to all of the contract content. Say Greg only needs access to 2 or 3 pages in the middle of a 100-page document, and that's all he needs access to. You can pass that document to him and limit his ability to see everything else but what you want him to see and what you want him to address. Say Dan and Amir, all they have to be is active participants in agreement and sign a signature page. You can just let that document reveal a signature page only to them. Say you and I pretty much, look at the whole. You look at the whole document. Maybe I can look at 75% of the document, but there's 25% that you don't even want me to know what's in there.
It's pretty granular.
It is very granular, and that's one of the very, very powerful, cool things about this technology. So we have a product that we're not quite ready for market yet, but we intend to put that product out there in the market. We actually created an application, we call it now Technology in Action, And we created this, this ability to kind of demonstrate some of the functionality. But as we went out in the marketplace, people were saying, hey, that's pretty cool. Can I buy that? Can we buy that? So we decided that maybe we ought to spend a little time and, clean it up a little bit, get it a little more user-friendly. In fact, we're looking for a really, really solid, person that's that's a GUI expert.
Yes, we need a user interface architect. I mean, but
are we an infomercial?
And if they're willing to,
maybe we
relocate
can
to Nashville,
something across the bottom, call 1-800.
But to go back and answer your question, both. I mean, primarily, initially, our thrust into the market, we want it to be with strategic alliance partners. And if capital comes along with that, well, that's all the better. If it doesn't, that's okay too.
That's awesome. Dan, you and I have been chatting in the past about kind of whether the benefit is security or it might be other things. I mean, I think we were talking about like when data is being passed from an object, could be used for a lot of different things, right? You probably have some customers that are looking at different applications.
Well, I think we have a lot of different directions we can go in, and so we're counting on customers to provide that, direction that we need to emphasize. Where do we want to put our resources? But we don't want to limit our field of view in terms of this stage of the game, in terms of what we want people to understand about the technology. So, there's a lot of functionality now that Greg has been able to implement within a data file, but a lot of that functionality may not have anything to do with protection per se. It might have more to do with monitoring. It might have more to do with just, rather than anomaly detection, it might be anomaly prevention and just send out relevant information to some other application that does the analytics. In a future state, there's nothing that prevents us though from building analytics into that data file.
It's interesting.
He has already added certain amount of learning. You can as a data owner, you can configure that data file to do a lot of things, but he's already put certain amount of learning into it. So as that data file ages, it becomes aware of, okay, I've spent most of my time at Starbucks and now all of a sudden I'm down the street at McDonald's. Or I've spent all my time in here in New York City and now all of a sudden I wake up and I'm in London. So there's a certain amount of learning that is built in today. Going forward, there's nothing that says you can't put in a whole lot more. So you can do a lot of stuff with that little engine.
It's cool.
And he said little engine, and I want to stress that because you listen to this kind of conversation, somebody watching this video might think, oh my God, what have they done to the overhead of that file? What have they done to the overhead of my computing systems? Very little.
Yeah.
It's tiny.
Well, if you want to embed in data, you have to be.
It's not nano. Right.
I want to ask Amir, you know a lot about threat. Do you think this kind of technology keeps bad guys away from my data?
Not only does it keep them away, it actually negates them to begin with. When Dan said about anomaly protection, obviously when the world is engaged today in code versus code, algorithm versus algorithm, this is a whole new paradigm shift. You are taking the equation and you're changing the game. So I absolutely say we are not threatened by anybody. Not the state actor and not the user within.
Yeah. That's good. Well, that's the kind of thing I think the industry needs. I've been a big proponent of data security because I've seen what can happen if you're too dependent on external means to protect it. It doesn't work. It maybe worked 20 years ago. Back when you were fooling around with virtual.
Well, it does though. I think one thing it does do though is it enables now your network architects and your infrastructure designs. It enables you to rethink those in some respects. You're not going to remove them. You're never going to not have a firewall. But at the end of the day, you can now count on another. You can count on the capability now of a data file doing certain things, which means now you might be able to rethink your firewall. You might be able to rethink how you've configured your network to get higher efficiency or higher levels of security, whatever. the point is you have a way now to rethink your infrastructure.
Yeah. And the one point we would like to make is that we're not, the intention is not to replace these boundaries, these walls that are traditionally there, because they're very important to, maintaining the integrity of your infrastructure, of your environment, to avoid disruption and that sort of thing. What smart data can do is work with these entities and say, now, data can work with you to help identify exfiltration, scenarios. What happens when the data is able to breach the wall by insider or somebody that has found a back door? That's where smart data can pick up the slack that has traditionally been lacking. Once data escapes your big, fence and your walls of security, it's gone. There's nothing you can do to track it, to determine where it's going to land.
Awesome.
I like to say that when human beings forget, our smart data doesn't. No matter where it wakes up, it's going to take an evaluation of its surroundings, its environment, and it's going to do something.
As a security guy, I like hearing that. It's going to, all right. So. Hey, for people who are interested more, the website I assume is the best place for them to go and take a look and learn a little bit more.
We're actually have hired a professional firm to help us really start looking a little more professional, and we do have a website, and it's pretty good, but it's pretty home-based.
Gearhead companies always have a tough website at the beginning, and then the marketing people get a hold of it and say, hold on a minute, you got to But we'll put up the URL and offer the people visit your site to learn more.
It's going to be changing. It'll be better.
And I guess if there's some GUI experts out there, they should probably also drop it down on your. All right. Well, I want a finder's fee if you get it. No, I'm kidding. But hey, you guys are fun. It looks like it must be a fun place to work. You got a great boss, and Nashville sounds like a fun place to work as well.
Well, listen, you can come down and visit for a little bit.
And, get out of this New York rat race. But listen, I want to thank all four of you for spending some time with us. I think folks watching will learn something, and I recommend that they take a look and dig into the product a little bit. Maybe there's some potential partners out there for you.
We appreciate the opportunity, and there's no way in this short period of time that we can really get down to how powerful it is, smart data.
I think you've done a pretty good job summarizing that. You guys have done a really nice job.
So anybody that digs in is going to have some really nice discoveries.
Well, listen, I want to thank you again. And on behalf of the whole group here, we'll see you next time. And I hope you enjoyed the discussion. Take care.
Thank you.